It seemed no amount of riot police could stop people voting. According to the Catalan government, on October the 1st, 90% of the 42.3% of people who voted said yes to splitting from Spain.
My government, in the next few days, will send the results of today's vote to the Catalan Parliament where the sovereignty of our people lies, so that it can act in accordance with the law of the referendum.
But Madrid said it had no intention of acting in accordance with the process it had already declared illegal.
Let's hope that they accept the situation now and that they don't insist on the error.
But after coming so far, many Catalans weren't prepared to back down. They held large marches and strikes in Spain and Catalonia in support of the referendum result. And there were calls from the UN and EU to investigate how hundreds of people were injured in violent confrontations with police on voting day. Spain and its economy had been shaken. 5 days after the referendum, stock markets tumbled as investors dumped shares. One of Catalonia's biggest banks relocated outside of the region, and around 700 companies followed. And with the cash in people's pockets suddenly being threatened, politicians were under pressure to act decisively.
A very clear message that the policies implemented by the regional government of Catalonia are extremely negative, extremely detrimental to the economy of Catalonia.
After what many described as police brutality the week before, Spaniards and Catalans dressed in white and called for peaceful resolution. But those pleas were short-lived. Earlier this week, 2 influential Catalan separatist leaders were jailed. Known as the 2 Jordis, they're accused of whipping up demonstrations ahead of the referendum and are charged with sedition. But the pair have much support in Catalonia. And on Tuesday, tens of thousands of people came out demanding their release. But Madrid has now called an emergency cabinet meeting on Saturday to likely suspend Catalonia's autonomy, leaving 7.5 million Catalans now wondering what their future holds. Vanessa Keneally, The Newsmakers.
I'm joined now by Catalan Government Minister Oriol Amorós and Spanish politician Carlos Silva. We had you both on the show after the referendum. It was a riveting debate and really important for me to listen to both of you immediately after the vote. The standoff continues between the two. Let me start with you, Oriol. What has Puigdemont done? Has he declared independence or not? Because Rajoy is asking, what have you done? Have you declared or have you not declared?
Yes, of course. The Catalan people, not Mr. Puigdemont, the Catalan people has declared the intention and the will to be independent. You have to think that the referendum was done in a very difficult situation, and in spite of this difficult situation, there's a 38% of the census who has voted. It seems to be maybe a low turnout, but for example, the Brexit votation was backed by the 37% of the census. So this is a clear statement of the Catalan people that they want to be independent. So what is doing now, Mr. Puigdemont is saying, we want to be independent. I'm hearing the people of Catalonia, and I will work on that direction. But at the same time, I want to make to give an option to dialogue with the Spanish government. We want to tend our hand to have a dialogue process in order and with the goal to do that process to independence in a more accorded way as possible.
Mm-hmm. Carlos, should Madrid be open to that dialogue that Puigdemont wants?
Well, as anything that has to do with Puigdemont and the pro-independence movement is a fake dialogue, because he said one thing and the other at the same time, just trying to make the situation more confusing. And in fact, when he talks about dialogue, what he means is to discuss with Madrid the conditions for the independence of Catalonia. So the government, the national government, will never discuss that, but because that would be to place the national government outside the law, and it's not going to do it.
Oriol is here, he's not in jail, but other Catalan leaders are in jail. Is that the right move from Madrid?
Well, in fact, that's not a movement from the government, because the separation of powers in Spain, and that's a judicial decision. So it's a preventive imprisonment, and those two leaders, they're rioters, which have recognized that they were the leaders of the summoning people and surrounding the police when they were just seeking and obeying on order from the courts to do an investigation on the legal referendum. So they summoned people, they gathered people there to prevent that investigation to go on, and they even stood on top of a car. Several police cars were destroyed.
Okay, so separation of powers, Oriol. This has nothing to do with Madrid wanting to squeeze your movement. It's just the law taking its course.
No, it's not. It's clearly an influence from the government, and it's a political movement. And we have yet again political prisoners, which is very sad, because you used to have a dictatorship with political prisoners, and now we also have political prisoners. These two NGO leaders, because they are leaders of the civic institutions, they are not civil servants. They are leaders of NGOs. We are talking to the people, to the crowd who was there protesting, and I think every democracy has the right to demonstration, and citizens has the right to demonstrate. And what these two persons did is tell to the people to go home. So they were the ones who tells people to go home. I was there. I'm a direct witness of this, because I was just beside on there, and they were talking to the people, yes, go home. And now they are in jail. Why they are in jail? Because they have organized a very big civic movement who has been able to organize the biggest demonstration, a more peaceful and non-violent demonstration in whole Europe in decades.
So Carlos, might it be fine? Okay, you found the referendum illegal, unconstitutional. You don't want these people to break up Spain. But having said all of that, Madrid has been heavy-handed with the police on the day of the vote, and now with rounding up these Catalan leaders. Why can't it be both?
Well, I don't think they were heavy-handed. I think that the use of violence was proportionate, and the same that in those very difficult conditions due to the disobedience of the regional police.
But who attacked them? Nobody really attacked them.
Well, people also attack the police. There are tens of videos showing the violence of the pro-independence movement. And I want to deny what Oriol said, in the sense that the two leaders which have been imprisoned are civil society leaders. That they are closely connected to the Generalitat. One of the leaders, of the organizations, has received 20 million in the last few years from the government, and they recognized publicly that they were organizing. They even set up stalls in the streets to organize people who were surrounding and harassing the police. So it was nothing like a demonstration.
Oriol, let me ask you about who...
That's one proof. There is no police injured in this day. No one.
And that's a good point. No police injured.
No one.
But if we can talk about the fake 900.
But I want
you can't say that, because
there were many injured. Right?
All of
You'd
them,
agree there were many injured.
All of them have, all of the 900 injured, and one of them has a document from a doctor, and the College of Doctors has said that they are going to make judicial procedures to those who are saying that the documents of doctors are not true. So they have documents.
No, there is evidence that the hospitals were told to register everybody.
Okay, so
this is a
so let me then. Okay, so let's take that number then, Carlos. Let's say if it was even half of that reported.
Like
no, it's not half.
Say if it was half. Say it was 450 people.
No, not four. 4 people.
4
people went to hospital.
No, sorry, Carlos, you can't say that.
I mean, we saw old grandmas.
You can't lie that way. It's an excess. And it's ridiculous, because all the world has said that. Are you saying that the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Financial Times, the Guardian, all the media all over the world has put that repression in the front page, and you say that it's a lie?
I'm saying that international press should look the other way, because they're accepting the whole.
But you say it's just 4
from the
just 4, please.
Just 4 people went to hospital. Yes, and there is clear evidence. People who said that police had broken the fingers and was false.
Okay, so let me take
I think
that.
it's a good point that the
Right.
Spanish government side is doing is acting so ridiculous.
You think they're in denial?
All the world have seen that. So how you can deny that?
So
I can give you tens of evidences of
so you
use of
disagree on
violence
the
by
numbers.
other policies.
Let me take the political
which are
reality that
similar to
emerged
this.
from that.
All
Right. Let me take the political reality that emerged from that. So after the vote, Oriol, we had European leaders and those in the corridors of power in the international community doing two things. The first thing they did was they showed their support for Mariano Rajoy.
Yeah.
They showed their support for Spain's territorial sovereignty,
Yeah.
right? They did that. They didn't support your movement or your vote. And the other thing that they did was they condemned the violence. They condemned police brutality, right? So they were playing this kind of balancing act.
Yes,
so the only
this
support
police brutality that
Certainly,
Carlos says that doesn't exist.
Okay, fair enough.
It's incredible.
But the only support that you really got happened on the day, right?
Yeah.
That was it. The only support that they gave you was related to cops beating up protesters or voters.
Yeah.
Now that we've moved on, more than 2 weeks on, they don't have to condemn it now because it's not in their faces anymore. It didn't happen yesterday. So all we're left with is their support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Spain. And during this time, not a single nation has come out and said, we support your movement, you should break away from Spain. Doesn't that leave you a little disheartened that nobody's come out and supported your movement?
No, this is something that we should expect, because the normal thing is that then organizations based on states support other states. So this is not the point. We are happy that we have had the support on dialogue issue, and we want to start a dialogue. And for example, the Foreign Minister of Sweden, the Parliament of Denmark, the Prime Minister of Belgium, the Parliament of and Government of Slovenia, this all has talked and has said we have to start a dialogue, and we have to, and they are asking Mariano Rajoy to start the dialogue with the Catalan government. So this is the first step. Nobody recognizes a state who has already declared officially the independence. So we are not expecting now anyone to recognize our independence at this moment. At this moment, we think that it's a good start to have all these statements that I mentioned and more others.
Mm-hmm. At this moment in time, Carlos, I know it's quite raw for many Spaniards who don't want their country broken up, but might it be a good thing to have mediation and then maybe give the Catalan government, the local regional government still within Spain, a better deal, a better economic deal, a better deal with more autonomy, and then see where that takes you?
Well, as the national government has said, anything is possible within the law. But what's not possible is outside the law. There's no dialogue outside the law. So what they're saying when they call for international mediation, they're thinking about the next stage, because everything is organized and timed. And now they started a campaign just trying to victimize themselves and to spread a shadow of a doubt on the legitimacy of the national government. But that's just another phase of the pro-independence strategy. I think no dialogue, anything can be discussed within the law, within the constitution. That's the point that the national government has always taken, and that's the point that the pro-independence regional government has never accepted.
Do you still accept the political reality that more than 90% of people who had voted yes?
But it wasn't a legal referendum, so we don't know how many people voted. We've got evidence that the numbers, the amount of people who voted, and the percentage of people that would vote yes was already decided before the referendum. We've got evidence of that. It's been published. So it's absolutely fake. So we don't have to take. And there's another thing. I'm Catalan. I was born in Catalonia. Yes. I speak Spanish and I speak Catalan, as Oriol knows. And more than half of the population of Catalonia shares my opinion. But
that's why they voted, and it showed that 90%.
No, but the government of the region doesn't accept that we exist, and they pretend to be the Catalans. Even the president of the Catalan parliament has said that the people who are not pro-independence in Catalonia are not real Catalans. They said it.
No, you can say that. We never said that. No, we never said that.
Oriol, you want?
But the King of Spain
Certainly.
said in his public statement that he was to protect the half of the Catalans. He says really clearly that in a public statement on TV. And the Catalan government has always felt and always said that the whole Catalans, always those Catalans who want to remain in Spain, are the same rights and the Catalans at the same level of everyone. And that is a clear statement in our policy, and you know it perfectly.
No,
you can misunderstand what you want. You can.
Jordi Turull said that we are vassals.
No, I can.
That we are vassals, and Carme Forcadell said that we are not
declarations on a very inclusive way to understand what the Catalan is. And this is the main. And every Catalan expert or every Catalan observer from the world knows that we are a movement with an idea of the identity absolutely open.
It's a classic hypocritical double speech.
Sorry.
No, not you.
Sorry.
Final question for you, Oriol. During this dialogue, if it happens, when it happens, would you accept any resolution that stops short of independence?
If Catalan votes so in that way, yes, of course. But if Catalan votes, so the key point is.
So you want another vote?
Any kind of solution has to be supported by the majority.
Okay.
And I'm very glad when Carlos and other pro-Spanish government opinators are discussing about counting people. If they want to count, make a referendum. And a referendum is absolutely possible under the actual Spanish constitution. You just have to use the Article 92. So if they go on discussing how many people is in favor that way, how many people is in favor of the other way, we can resolve that question just voting. So if there is a kind of solution that is not independence and it's supported explicitly by the Catalan population, I will agree, of course. But I want the people to be the freedom to decide. That's all.
Okay.
That's all our question. I want Carlos voting, and Carlos doesn't want that I can vote.
I have voted.
No, in
20 seconds,
in the issue
Carlos,
we are talking about, please.
I've got to wrap. I've got to wrap.
In the
Carlos.
issue we are talking about.
No, but on the issue,
and
because
all the issues,
all the pro-independence parties just gathered together together for yes, and they didn't win the election.
They didn't win the election. Yes, we win.
They didn't
yes,
got
we
the
won.
majority.
Okay, let me ask you one direct final question, if you don't mind.
We are running.
We are running out.
We win.
Okay, we're running out of time. I want to ask one final direct question to Carlos. Article 155, revoking autonomy. Is that a tool that should be used by Madrid?
It's a legal tool, and it's not for revoking
Should it happen? Do you want it to happen? Taking away the autonomy?
Sure, of course. I think it's the only way now.
Really?
Yes.
It might happen.
It's going to happen.
No, this is happening already.
Okay.
Because the 155, in some ways, for example, in control of financial issues, it's already happening.
Okay.
Illegally. Because the Senate,
illegally,
because the Senate hasn't said nothing.
Okay,
but
the ministry has.
Now it's already happening.
Okay, Oriol says it's already happening. Carlos says it should happen. That would mean Catalonia losing all its autonomy that it has up to now. Anyway, gentlemen,
I think we would agree that we are not expecting to lose all the autonomy.
A lot of it.
A lot of it.
155 doesn't mean that suspension of autonomy. It's just the suspension of those aspects of autonomy to bring back the rule of law.
Because it's more Madrid and less Catalonia.
Yes, it's very open.
You can interpret it in a hard way.
Yes, I agree.
And I expect that Mariano Rajoy is going to.
We'll know in a couple of days.
Okay, gentlemen, I've got to move on, but I must sincerely thank both of you for coming to Istanbul to have this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Thanks to you once more.